Welcome to the Jerry Acuff Show. I'm Jerry, your host, and I started this podcast to bring to you people who are doing incredible things. I've always been fascinated by those who have found their greatness, and I'm excited to share the secrets of their success. Let's meet today's guest. Welcome to the Jerry Acuff Show. I am excited today to have my guest, David Mammano, who is billed as America's entrepreneur coach, and I would say rightfully so. Now, David started his career in radio sales, but in 1995 decided to follow the path of an entrepreneur and became a magazine publisher. He created Next Step magazine to help teens with planning their life after high school. Now, the magazine ultimately wound up helping 3 million, that's an M with a million, teens with college careers in more than 20,000 high schools. Next, David and his team created Next Step U, which was a website to replace the magazine. And he had 4 or 5 other Next Step offerings to help people make these kinds of decisions, which he eventually sold. His next venture was starting the Avante Entrepreneur Group to help people start and succeed in their own business. In his spare time, he's a board member of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He's been a TEDx speaker. He started seven businesses from scratch. And he also has written 2 books. And one of them, which I have to ask him about sooner or later, is Make Love in the Workplace, because I love that title. So, David, welcome to the Jerry Acuff Show.
Hey, Jerry, I am thrilled to be here. You are an amazing man, and I'm honored that you want me on your show.
Well, I was fascinated as I was doing research on. I mean, I've known you for a while, as you know, but when I read this thing about you quitting your job as a radio salesman because of your boss, tell us that story.
Sure. So I got out of college in 91, and I ran the college newspaper, right? So I loved selling ads. I'm a salesman, just like you, Jerry. I mean, I think I've been a lot of different things. I think on my tombstone it's going to say salesman. So loved selling ads, and then I thought, I'll go to radio and then TV at the time. Remember, this is 1991 before
Sure.
the internet, and then TV's the pinnacle, So got into radio, and I did it for 3 years. And I got to tell you, I mean, I like my boss. I mean, I always had nice bosses, but I hated having a boss. And it was like an uncontrollable, innate feeling that I couldn't control. It was a fire in my stomach that if I continued to have a job, I think I would have got sick. I think I would have got an ulcer or something. I just couldn't take it. I just couldn't take having a boss. I don't care if it was Mother Teresa. I might have worked for her, but I mean, it was just a feeling like, I can't have a boss. So I finally, at the age of 25, said, you know what, David? No wife, no kids, no nothing. I had a Geo Prism at the time, if you remember those cars.
Yeah.
I said, if I lose that, you know what? I'll be fine. I said, now's the time to try it. So I quit my real job, put together a business plan to launch, as you said, Next Step magazine, which was focused on helping high school students with college, career, and life planning.
One of the things I love about what you said, I tell young people all the time when they talk about their careers and you're talking to college students, I say, why don't you start your own business? I mean, the younger you are, the less financial obligations you have, and unless you may have a boatload of student loans.
Yep.
But the earlier you get started, the better off you are. I mean, I started, my entrepreneur career at 51. We had a guest on here several weeks ago who's a really good friend of mine who started his at 57.
Yep.
I wish I'd have done it at 25, like you did. I'm fascinated by this idea of the magazine. Because it's such a simple yet powerful concept. How'd you get the idea to do that?
Well, I knew in my heart that I wanted to start a business. As I was mentioning, I just didn't like being in that corporate world, having a boss. So I started kind of, bouncing off ideas in my head. I was talking to my cousin who was going to RIT. I'm here in Rochester, so RIT is Rochester Institute of Technology, which is a marvelous school.
Right.
And I asked him, I go, oh, great school. How'd you get in? Well, why'd you choose RIT? And he really didn't know why. He kind of shrugged his shoulders and he goes, I don't know. I got in. My parents said it was a good school. I had a couple friends going. I think I'm interested in engineering, but he really didn't know. And I thought, what a shame. How many kids go to college and really don't know why? It's kind of like just the thing to do. It's the next thing to do after high school for many families, many people. And I thought, what a shame. And I thought, this could be the problem I solve, is that I could take my experience from college running the newspaper and, of course, selling ads for newspaper and radio and start a magazine for teenagers while they're still in high school to help them prepare for life after high school while they're still in high school. So it was, as most entrepreneurs, successful ones anyway, they solve a need, right? There's a hole in the market, problem to be solved. And that was the problem for me, was that too many teenagers didn't really prepare for life after high school. And I was going to do something about it.
So, but a magazine is a lot harder to start than a website.
Well, it's funny. And we had a website in 95. They were just coming out. And so I'm proud of that. It was obviously a very different website than the ones they have today. But a magazine is, you definitely need to know how to sell ads, or at least hire somebody who knows how to sell ads, because that's how you support it. But on the other side of the fence, you got to know somebody that can create good content, because no one's going to read the magazine if there's not good content. And if there's not good content, no one's reading it. There's not going to be enough readership to sell ads. So the very, very connected relationship and talents that must be involved in starting a magazine. And then you got to manage all the costs. How many copies to print? Are you going to mail it? Are you going to deliver it? Are you going to ship it in bulk? A lot of variables. For me, it was a natural talent, though. I just loved it. It was I don't want to say it was easy for me, but certainly hard work, but it came natural. And we all have our superpowers. As you are, Jerry, I feel like I'm a natural born salesman. And then I found, my niche as far as what I was supposed to be selling at that time. So I loved it. I got energy from it. I enjoyed it. And as you know, if you're doing something that gives you energy, you just want to do more of it. So was it a struggle? Absolutely. I mean, I was 25. I didn't have a lot of money. So I quit my real job, as I said, started Next Step Magazine. But at night, I was a waiter. Come 5 o'clock, I turned into a pumpkin, and I worked at Ruby Tuesdays and Mario's. And I was, so I was a magazine publisher by day, and I was, schlepping meatballs by night. But I did whatever it took to make it happen. And I look back, and I was exhausted most of the time, but I look back and, wow, part of the journey that I smile and I'm just very proud about.
So, but it also seems fair to say that this experience that you had on the newspaper in college was beneficial.
Absolutely. And that was kind of funny the way that happened. So I went to college to be a dentist, right? So I was in pre-dental, and I did an internship. Thank God for internships, because I realized I had no love of teeth whatsoever. and I said, why the heck did I want to be a dentist? Thought about it. My mother's cousin was our dentist, and he had a big house and a red Porsche. So as any 14-year-old kid, hey, I want to be a dentist. Didn't really think about the career. Nothing wrong with being a dentist, but once again, it wasn't my calling. So I changed my major to communications. Then I was going to be a TV reporter, and did an internship at NBC here in Rochester. Wonderful people. Once again, did not love that career. Wasn't my calling. Going back to college, and at this point, I'm a junior. I'm a little confused. What am I going to do? And I had a friend working at the school newspaper, and she was writing. And she goes, why don't you come down? You could be a writer. So I'm like, okay, I like to write. Came down. The editor's like, we don't have any positions available. He goes, why don't you walk over to that side? You could sell some ads for a while. And then when a writing position opens up, we'll bring you over. I said, okay, that sounds good. So I went over to the ad department and they quote unquote hired me. And so I went out and I said, all right, what am I supposed to do? I called the local pizza shops, restaurants, car dealerships, any business locally that wanted to market to college students. Well, I found my calling, because I became number one salesperson. I became sales manager of the school newspaper, and it came out 3 times a week. It was like 11,000 circulation. It's a pretty big paper, for college, and I loved it. And that's how I found my calling, by just kind of bouncing around, trying some different things. But yeah, that set the foundation for me to realize, like, wow, I'm supposed to be in sales, and I'm really good at selling sponsorships, selling ads. and convincing convincing people to do things that I'm convinced can really help them. When I'm coming from a place of sincerity, of offering value to either help a company or a person just get better.
Wayne, the late great Wayne Dyer used to say, "We must manage the coincidences in our life, and there are none."
That's true.
And as I listen to your story and see how the correlation between your experience at the newspaper ultimately led you to this, the beginning of this path, I think about my degree, which I took English for one reason, because it didn't have afternoon classes, and I could sleep before football practice before somebody knocked the heck out of me, and and today, and for the last, I guess 35 years, I've made my living with words. And all of those things that I learned in English have been a huge help to my success. But, again, as Dyer said, it must not be a coincidence. So, David, when did you realize that your passion was not only to be an entrepreneur, but to teach and coach other entrepreneurs?
Well, once again, you could mention Wayne Dyer. So when next step, obviously, at some point along the path, as you predicted, as you mentioned, teens in print are no longer cutting edge technology. So I retired the printed magazine, put everything online. That's when Next Step U, Next Step Academy, Next Step College Prep, a lot of different Next Step online products came to be. And it never was the same business. It was a very different business. It was more very reliant on digital marketing, and so at some point I had some offers where people wanted to run that for me and just buy it. So then I'm kind of approaching like a transition stage, and I have this kid. I call him a kid. He's 25 years old at the time. He calls me out of the blue. He goes, "Hey, Mr. Mammano, you met with me 5 years ago when I was graduating college, and I wanted to start a business. You let me pick your brain." And I took tons of notes, and I just was looking at my notes, and I'm doing really well now. And it's a lot of the things you told me to do, I'm doing, and I feel like that's why I'm successful. So I just wanted to call and thank you. And I said, "That was so nice. I really appreciate that, Ben." And not that you called, but you actually listened to me and you took some of my advice. And then he ended the call by saying, "Dave, I also want to call because I think you should do this for a living. I think you would offer a lot of value to help people start businesses." And you know what? It just hit me. I was in my car and it just hit me. Once again, a God moment, like coincidence, like, wow, I think this could be what I do next. And got back to the office, drove my staff nuts, but I was like, "Listen, guys, we're going to create a website, davidmammano.com, and we're going to create like a coaching program where with a curriculum and programs to help people start and grow businesses." And we just jumped with it. And that was 2 years ago. And we started having events. We developed, like I said, this coaching program. I do a lot of speaking. Started these Avanti peer groups, which is a confidential mastermind group among small to medium-sized business owners looking to scale to that next level. We're starting to expand those around the country now. And just doing a lot of different things to help people, inspire people to start the business, and also a lot of programs to help them grow their business. So it just, so I totally agree with you and what Wayne's saying, that there's coincidences, yet there's no coincidences. But I also believe too, you have to be open-minded enough and faithful enough to be awake, to hear it and to recognize it and to say, all right, wow, this is something. Let me embrace this and have the courage and the faith to move forward with it. Because I think a lot of people get, I'll call them God moments, and they don't really, accept them or listen to them. And so I think that's the next piece, is you have to be open to them, to saying, okay, whatever your higher power is, mine's God. I feel like I have to listen to him and say, all right, I don't know everything where you're taking me, but I'm going to trust the journey. And that's one of my core values is trust the journey, because you don't always know where you almost never know where you're going to end up. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is just having faith that you're working hard and moving in the right direction.
So David, when you're talking to these, entrepreneurs, and you've started from scratch, which is unbelievable to me, 7 businesses, what are some of the biggest challenges that you share with them to make an entrepreneurial idea become a thriving business?
So I think the biggest challenge is focus. I started 7 businesses, but that was distilled from maybe like 1,000 ideas in my mind, right? So I am the mad scientist that constantly has these ideas, and I need to be very careful that once I go through with actually launching a new business, brand, product, that I stay faithful to the focus. The past 2 years of starting Avanti, I've had a lot of different ideas, a lot of different directions. All of them have been very exciting, but I just could not do all of them. So really, the past few months, I've pruned the rose bush. I was growing like a bush instead of a tree, and I just had to take a deep breath and say, what really is working best for me, what gives me the most energy, and what is everything that I'm doing will allow me to have the biggest global impact for entrepreneurship. And it was tough because I was doing a lot of things that I like, coaching programs, et cetera. But when I took a deep breath and really looked at what I needed to focus on to bring the one thing to global impact, which that's another one of my core values is impact, was the peer groups. We have 4 peer groups here in Rochester that are very impactful for the small to medium-sized business owner. It's almost like a Vistage Light, right?
Right.
And then there's such a need for that, for the smaller entrepreneur to have a sense of community and collaboration and learning. So we have 4 groups. We're starting a 5th. We're starting one in Buffalo, New York, and we're looking at starting one in Chicago. So we're starting to get the momentum rolling. So to get these Avanti peer groups rolling really around the world. If you're familiar with Jim Collins and Good to Great,
yeah,
the BHAG, the big hairy audacious goal. Well, my BHAG is 10,000 groups in 10 years.
Wow.
So right now I've got 4, right, 4 live ones. So hopefully, Jerry will do another podcast in 10 years, and I'll say, hey, we just hit 10,000.
That's awesome. I love your concept of focus because, I'm so guilty of that. And I think, I read somewhere where 90% of entrepreneurs have ADHD. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know that, you find one good idea and another one seems to come up really quickly. And, if you don't keep the main thing, you wind up, doing too much. How important, David, in your opinion, are relationships and being good at selling or influencing others to the aspiring entrepreneur?
Well, first of all, if you are not good at relationships and you're not good at selling, I don't see how you could be an effective entrepreneur unless you have a ton of money up front to invest in people that are. Entrepreneurship is all about relationships and selling. It's about relationships that you create with prospects that hopefully will turn them into customers. It's relationships that you develop with your vendors. You're just starting out. People need to believe and trust you and give you terms. People don't think about that. Let's have good relationships with our vendors. And in my opinion, the most important relationship that you need to have is with your team. So when you start hiring people, and me, Jerry, I'm all about culture, and that's, we'll talk about my book, Make Love in the Workplace, which is about workplace culture. It is rated G. But it's establishing incredible relationships with your team so that they love coming to work. And you have developed very instigative systems that allow them to thrive and do their best, which in the end allows you to have a very successful company. So there's lots of different types of relationships that you need to manage.
So, you're a fountain of ideas. How tell us about your podcast, because I know you do a podcast, and I can't imagine that listening to that podcast wouldn't give people, an awful lot of ideas, and B, might be the entree to their own Avanti peer group, wherever they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So the podcast I started it's going to be almost 2 years, and it's probably the most consistent thing I've ever done in my life. I have done a show every week. I haven't taken a break, and I love it. And I just was informed by Stephen Wessner, who owns the company that produces my podcast, that I am among the top 30 podcasters in the world as far as number of downloads consistently. And it's solely because, is it because I'm wonderful and I have great content? I would like to think that, but I think the bigger reason is consistency and focus. So most podcasters, I think it's something like 70% of podcasters only last 9 episodes and then they fizzle out. So just the fact that I've been doing it every week for almost 2 years, and I think the compound effect of that has just built and built and built to the point where I'm really starting to have an impact with my podcast. I get when I release a show on Wednesday, every Wednesday, I get a ton of feedback, emails, tweets, etc., about how much they like it and questions and wanting to get connected. And that just fuels my energy because, like I said, one of my core values is impact. I want to have impact. And when it's even just one person, it makes me feel incredible because I know that I'm helping that one person today. So that's probably the favorite part of my podcast. And my podcast, the goal is to just interview. And Jerry, I had you on my show. We did the recording a few weeks ago, and is to really find people that are just inspiring, enthusiastic, and just really can offer some great nuggets for my Avanti listeners who are beginning to middle stage entrepreneurs so that they can grow to their next level of potential. The things you and I, Jerry, know because we've been entrepreneurs for 20 years, the things that we know, a lot of these people starting out, they don't know yet.
Right.
They haven't done that, been down that path. So the things that we take for granted, we can teach, and we're helping tremendously. Storytelling experiences been very, very beneficial for the people that I coach and my listeners, and just incredible for me as well.
So, David, how can folks contact you if they want some ideas or just to understand how you can help them succeed, whether it's an Avante peer group, which I love. I was in Vistage for two or three years, and it was very helpful to me, but I thought it was too big. There was so many people there, and so I ultimately, I was there for 2 years, and I wound up having, developing 2 great relationships from it that people that still help me today. So I'm big. I did a video this weekend on collaboration, about how important collaboration is, about seeking expertise from the experts. So how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about how you can help them make their business successful?
Well, great question. So a few ways. They could go to my website, AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com, and there's a top nav peer groups. They can click on that, learn more. They can listen to my podcasts. All of my podcasts are listed there, a lot of information. They can email me from there. Or if they just want to just flat out email me, pretty simple, David@DavidMammano.com, Mammano. And heck, you know what, Jerry, your audience, they got to be good people. I'm gonna just give them my cell phone, 585-317-8254. Feel free to give me a call or a text. Be happy to be very accessible to help anybody out.
Well, I would, in sort of closing here, I took a page of notes here. I want to go over sort of my takeaways because I really think these things are things that need to be reinforced. Repetition is the mother of learning. But I always think that it's what you learn from other people that's so important. Number one of the things that you did when you talked to your cousin, you listened to him, and in listening to him, you saw this need. The second thing is that you realize that that's what entrepreneurs do. They solve a need, so they find a problem and they solve it. The third thing that you said, which I loved, which was you did whatever it took to make my venture successful. And I always say, a lot of people want to be a success, but they're not willing to do what it takes to become a success. They're not willing to sling tomato balls or replenish the broccoli at Ruby Tuesdays. But if you really believe in what you're doing, you'll do that. The fourth thing I took away was this idea of being open-minded and having the faith to be awake to what other people say to you. The fifth thing was this whole thing about focus, which is when I ask you about the biggest challenge, and it is for me, I know, and I would assume it is for a lot of my viewers. But I think the other thing that you didn't say, but I think you meant was, you said stay faithful to the focus, and what that means to me is that once you get real clear in your mind what it is you want to do, don't let anything deter you. Do whatever it takes to make that venture successful. I love what you said about if you're not good at relationship building or selling, you can't be an entrepreneur. But one of the funniest things in the world is that, I have friends who do mentoring at entrepreneurial programs, and they say the things that people are worst at is relationship building and selling. They just don't have a clue. They have an idea. They maybe be able to find some money, but they're just not that good at that. And then lastly, in response to your, making love at work, need a relationship with your team. I think that's so important. How a person feels determines their behavior more than what they know. And when you make that team feel energized, passionate, excited, they're going to perform for you. So thank you so much for being a guest today, David. If people will listen to this podcast, if they'll contact you, I promise you they will be incredible. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed today's show where we met yet another incredible person. As a thank you for listening, I want to extend a special offer. I want to give you 50% off of Jerry Acuff VT because I want to help you be incredible. Head over to jerryacuffvt.com and use the code JAVT50OFF at the checkout and accelerate your path to finding your greatness.
You're listening to RNCN, the digital destination for premium talk radio.